Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, I am delighted to have somebody with us today. I've been looking forward to talking to Phil Cooke. I've attended his seminars, I've read his books, and this guy is fascinating. He's a writer, television producer, a media consultant, and we have a lot to talk about today. And Phil, the last time I was with you, you gave a seminar in the UK for the United Christian Broadcasters. You gave a little test, and I flunked it.
Sorry about that, Barry. Good way to start the interview.
Huh? Yeah, good. Yeah, well, anyway, hey, before we get too far, where can people get a hold of your material? Because your writings are terrific.
Well, you're very kind, Perry. My blog is philcooke.com. I'm Cook with an E, PHILCOOKE.com. That's the best place. My books, you can get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much any online site you want. But philcooke.com is where my blog is, and you can certainly access my books there. And that's kind of where I spend my time. It's my therapist, if you will.
Great. Well, nice to see you again, my friend. Lot to talk about in a short time. What's your take on the Hobby Lobby case?
Well, I think, you know what, I'm thrilled. I could not be happier. I'm very, very thrilled. I know the Green family, and they're terrific, terrific family. It's really funny, the hysteria that's gone on about the decision here, here across the U.S. is kind of interesting to me, because here's a company that pays for 16 out of 20 of the contraceptive devices for their employees. They pay 100% of their employees' medical care. They start their employees at twice the minimum wage. I mean, and so many people are talking about this is the Taliban, this is going back to the Middle Ages, this is just a war against women. It's just absolutely insane. But I'll tell you what, Perry, it does remind us that who controls the narrative in the culture, who controls the story out there, really does control the story. Yeah. And we're seeing so many efforts to control the story that comes out of that Supreme Court decision, because people understand that the media has such incredible influence. And that if they can get their side out there, it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of the world, because that's the side people listen to.
All right. Do you think the faith community is going to capitalize on this, or just let it slide?
Well, historically, we've let it slide. I mean, historically, I think we've done, I jokingly tell people, Christians are telling the greatest story ever told. We're just not doing a very good job telling it. And I really believe that we could do a much better job. I think of the organization GLAAD, G-L-A-A-D, here in L.A., which is the activist organization for the gay community. Right. Honestly, they've done a brilliant job strategically of changing the culture by shifting the messages in the media, by shifting the way the story about them is told. And I think Christians could learn a lot from them, because we don't have a real overarching strategy for how to tell our story and how to change the perception of today's culture toward Christians.
All right. Now, in one of your articles, you really kind of step right out there and say, hey, stop apologizing for who we are and what we believe. Explain that.
Well, certainly people have done some, Christians have done some bad things in the name of the Lord. We've made mistakes. We've made errors. Some leaders that got too far into politics. Other leaders have gotten into other areas. And so what I see when Christians go in the national media, very often they open up with apologizing for the mistakes of the past. Well, you know what? That can go all the way back to the Crusades or earlier. We've made mistakes from day one. However, I think it's time to put that behind us. What organization hasn't? Democrats, Republicans here in the U.S., any environmentalists, feminists, the gay community, whatever, they've all made mistakes. Let's move past that as Christians. Let's not dwell so much on mistakes other people have made, and let's articulate better who we are, what our goal is, what our mission is, why we're here, and what our story really needs to be. I think if we can do that, we'll have a much better really make a much better impression in the culture as far as trying to change our perception.
Do you think we kind of got grace and truth mixed up? I mean, Jesus said do both, but we're over here, we want everything goes in order to evangelize, and yet there is another group of us who want to defend the truth and what the Bible says about the cultural issues. We don't seem to find the blend here.
You're right. And the truth is, I mean, listen to me, the truth is, I've got a PhD in theology, so truth matters to me, and I think the apologists from Josh McDowell to other guys do brilliant work out there. My first job in the film business was editing Francis Schaeffer's film series, How Should We Then Live, back in the late 70s. Wow. And so I've always been into standing up for the truth. However, What we have to learn is today's generation, millennials, they don't care about the truth. They care about what works. And so arguing with them about what is truth, really, they're not interested. They don't care. They want to know what works for me. And so I think as Christians, we need to shift the way we engage, because just hammering away on truth is not, we're not getting anywhere with that. I think it's time that we started engaging where people are. Paul did this brilliantly in Acts 17 in Mars Hill. He went in where they were and started talking about their religion and used that as the platform to engage them with the gospel. So I think, truth is important. We need to keep talking about it. However, it's not going to be the way we reach this generation.
All right. Church growth seems to be accelerating. We're seeing great attendance in America, which is certainly encouraging, but it doesn't translate into cultural change. What do you think the problem is?
Well, that's really, really true. That's a great point. And I think in many cases, we live in a bubble. There's a huge Christian bubble out there. Today we have Christian publishing, Christian television, Christian radio. We have Christian everything. And you can go your whole life. I saw a Christian insurance company. And the other day I saw, it was Pinterest, the Pinterest website that's a social media site where you can pin pictures and share photos and things with your friends. Now I saw there's a God interest. Somebody's completely ripped off Pinterest to make a Christian site. So we keep retreating back to bubbles, and I don't find that in the Great Commission anywhere. I don't find Jesus commanding the disciples to go and live in bubbles and not actually engage with the culture. So I think even though the churches are growing and there's some wonderful signs out there, and I have pastor friends who are doing remarkable things, I think we need to do a better job of getting out of those bubbles, actually start engaging non-believers with the message of hope.
Media it has exploded. The platforms are just enormous. And what an incredible opportunity. Do you think that is the mission field for America?
Absolutely. My wife and I have recently launched a nonprofit called the Influence Lab, influencelab.com. And our goal is to create that kind of strategy for using the media to engage today's culture. We just don't have it out there. And when you think about it, Facebook, when you count the number of users of Facebook by population, that makes it the third largest country in the world, somewhere between the United States and India.
Right.
And I always ask people, who's planting churches in that country? Who's sending missionaries to that country? I think we need to stop thinking about missions just in geographical terms and start thinking about missions in digital terms, because I'll tell you, Facebook is one of the countries of the future that we need to reach with the gospel, and we're not doing a great job. So with the Influence Lab nonprofit that we've launched, we really hope to use media, social media, broadcast media as a tool, short films, for instance, is a better tool for engaging today's culture and maybe shifting their attitudes toward who we are as Christians.
You think the faith community is apathetic and caught up in rapture mania and therefore not changing, not changing the culture?
We do have our crazies out there. And let me just say that if you're into the rapture and into prophecy, then you're not necessarily crazy. But one of the things the internet has really shown us is there are all kind of extremes, and people get focused on the most insane little things. You cannot believe the emails I get from people that their whole life, they see the world through this incredibly small lens. It may be the rapture or the end times, or it may be some other, just some other aspect of the Bible, which in balance would be good, but they live their whole lives totally focused on this little tiny area. And I think the internet has just created this. You're always going to find a friend out there that's into that. I know people that are into, they don't get their kids vaccinated anymore. And there's a movement out there for that. There's movements for everything imaginable on the web. And it really goes over into the Bible as well. So it concerns me that we get so caught up in things that don't matter. One of them, I don't mean to dominate here, Perry, but one of my big beefs here in America is that we, as Christians, we raise millions of dollars for the right to say a prayer at a high school football game. Is that really the big picture we need to be fighting for? I mean, we've got the world that's just going down this incredibly slippery slope, and we seem to be focused on little details. We want to win the battle, but I'm afraid we're losing the war.
Well, the cynicism, I think, is the cancer of the faith community. I mean, I'm surprised how many Christians are walking around with their head down. And of course, this 4 blood moon thing, I don't know where you are with all of that, but man alive, all of a sudden it's just sucked the oxygen out of the room.
I don't even get that. I got to say, I've got a PhD in theology, and I have no clue what that means. But you're right. I get attacked by blood moon people all the time, so it is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. I just think, there's a simple truth that God gave us, and that is go make disciples. Preach the gospel, make disciples, heal the sick. It's really pretty simple. I don't think we need to get caught up in so many things. Obviously, we all have hobbies. We all have interests. We all have things we're fascinated with. However, we sometimes lose sight. What's that phrase about we've got to keep the main thing the main thing?
Right.
And I think very often the church today gets so caught up in minor things that we've lost sight of what the major thing really is.
Wow. Hey, Phil, what are you working on? What's new for you?
Couple things. Working on a couple movies. Got a couple terrific clients. We've just launched a huge digital initiative with the Salvation Army. The address for that is savn.tv, savn.tv. We're doing a couple really interesting things with some people out there. I've also got a couple documentaries in the hopper I'm working on. We just love producing media projects. And, you mentioned the Hobby Lobby decision. They've launched a collection of Christian artifacts called Passages. It's a traveling museum that goes around the country with some amazing, amazing early biblical manuscripts, scrolls, things like that from our history. They've invested a huge amount of money in that. I had a meeting with them the other day about promoting that in an even bigger way, because we need to remind Christians of the incredible heritage we have. How we got the Bible is such a fascinating story. And so that's something we're involved in that we're really excited about. So there's a lot of things on the horizon, and we're thrilled.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll come back.
Sure.
I've got a couple more questions for you. Phil Cooke's with us today, just one of the champions in what we do here with media, and really honored to have him with us. We'll be right back. We're back, and really delighted and honored to have with us today Phil Cooke, writer, television producer, media consultant. He's authored quite a few books, and let me encourage you, whether you are a pastor, an elder, a board member, church worker, whatever, check out some of his books. Jolt, I think you'll find to be an incredible resource, along with One Big Thing, Unique, just to name a couple of the books that he's written. And you talk about engaging the culture and how to reach them. I think Phil's been called of God to do that, and does an excellent job. So, Phil, any other books that I should mention here?
No, that's great. Unique is really the book that is designed for pastors, ministry leaders, nonprofit leaders. That branding term is such a trendy term right now, and most of us really don't know what it means or how to do it. But the truth is, it's about how to tell your story more effectively. And I think that's the key. People want an engaging story. So if you're a leader out there, Unique, it's called Unique, Telling Your Story in the Age of Brands and Social Media, would be a fantastic book for people. And of course, One Big Thing is Discovering What You Were Born to Do. It's really my personal version of Unique, how to figure out that one big thing. I've discovered most of us spend most of our time doing a lot of things average, when we should be focusing on doing one thing extraordinarily well, because that's the way to cut through the clutter and get noticed with our career. So I wrote One Big Thing for people who are really struggling, figuring out what their strength is, what we should be doing.
Did City Slickers take that from you?
Well, I actually used the quote in the front of the book, so they beat me to it. But I love that quote. It's just a fantastic thing.
Yeah, one thing. Hey, I want to come back to content development. Do you think those of us in Christian media understand that's the future?
No, I don't. But it's funny because it's always been in the Christian world, because from day one, it was about preaching and teaching. So it was about sharing a message and getting it out there to people. And so, times change. I'll tell you something interesting, Perry. At the turn of the last century, in the early part of the 20th century, churches made more movies than Hollywood. There's numerous areas of documentation that between about 1898 and 1914, maybe up to 1920, the church produced enormous numbers of movies. I was actually at a church, a big cathedral in Montclair, New Jersey, a few years ago. And when they recently remodeled the church, they discovered a movie projection booth that had been built into the wall of the lobby. They had a giant lobby, and they turned it on Friday nights into a movie theater. And so the church embraced movies early on, and then years went by, and they just kind of let it go. And when a void happens, other things are going to fill it. So we've gotten to where we are today. So I do think it's encouraging that a younger generation are embracing media, television, radio, the online world, social media, films, all those kind of things, because I think we live in a media-driven culture. And if we're going to reach them, that's the way to do it.
Well, in particular, video-driven culture.
Oh, so true. We are picture oriented. It's amazing. I had an interesting conversation with Kevin Kelly, who co-founded Wired magazine. And he said, he said they did some research. And when you show a young baby, even a toddler or a little younger baby, a traditional photo, the first thing they try to do is zoom in on it, zoom in without knowing anything about iPhones or Androids or anything. It's natural. So it's amazing how young kids get it. I mean, when my computer breaks, I don't send it to a computer shop. I look for a 12-year-old, and they're going to fix it. So it's just interesting how that generation has adapted to expressing themselves visually in that way.
Well, it's been said the third generation now has been born with a mouse in its hand. So that's where we are. Let me ask you this. How do you deal with the fact that all of this technology has produced a very short attention span? How do we get the message across?
That's tough. I'll tell you, it is so true. It is so true. And the interruptions are at an all-time high.
So is impatience.
Well, it's amazing when you research. I laugh, but it's tragic because you do a little research and you find out the number of people that get hit by cars because they're texting on their phone. I saw some videos the other day of people walking into fountains in the middle of a city square. I have a friend. I saw a sign on an elevator recently that said, "Please make sure the car is in place before you step into the elevator." I thought it was a joke, and I posted it on my Facebook page. And a friend from high school said she had a friend who did that very thing. Elevator door open. She walked in because she was texting a friend, didn't notice there was no car there, and she fell 7 stories to her death. Ooh. So we're finding that this digital world of ours is reshaping everything. We know research indicates that it takes a second or less for people to decide what articles to read online. I know from my experience as a television producer in a 300-channel universe, it takes people 2 to 3 seconds to decide what show to watch or what channel to watch on cable TV. So everything happens at a blazing speed, which means for Christians, that needs to change the way we present the gospel. We have to understand that there's a lot of competition out there. People are not just going to come and visit your church. There's too many other things to do, too many choices. So we have to understand how to stand out, how to rise above that clutter, and actually get our message noticed.
Yeah, because I just did some research the other day and found out that we're listening to music 8 to 10 seconds.
I believe it. I totally believe it. I believe it. And I'll tell you this. I found out that I wrote a blog the other day called The Price of Constantly Checking Your Email at philcooke.com. And one of the things I said was research indicates that every time you interrupt the work you're doing to check your email, it takes between 20 and 30 minutes to get back to the same level of focus you were at before you left. And so how many of those does it take in a day to we just get people, some research indicates people do it 70 to 80 times a day, just constantly checking email. Learn to put it aside, focus on what you have to do. Once that's done, periodically check your email, and let me tell you, your productivity will shoot through the roof.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, with this impatient, short attention span world, what's it doing to us as the scripture says, be still and know that I'm God? Are we? What's it doing to our prayer life? What's it doing to our being alone and meditation life?
It's killing it. Absolutely killing it. We live in this instant gratification world. That's the problem. If I don't get my Amazon book in 2 days, I'm really upset. We just live in this. I think the instant gratification is transforming more than we think. Not only is it destroying prayer lives, and because the minute you're in the minute you start praying, you think of something you need to do, of course. Yeah. And in an instant gratification world, you have to do that thing right now. I think it has implications for porn. You see all the statistics that porn is absolutely skyrocketing. Kids as young as 8, 9 years old are finding their first exposure to pornography. And we live in this world where it's just so easy. Bang, just one click of my mouse, I can see the most unbelievable pornography sites on the internet. And it's this instant gratification thing. So when it comes to developing a real romantic relationship with my wife, those things take time. And yet I'm used to instant gratification on the web. So I think that instant gratification world and that idea is impacting so much that we do. I find that employees, people I work with, clients, they don't want to wait. They do not want to wait. It takes years to develop your skill and your talent and develop projects and ideas. And yet we have a generation of people that do not want to wait for that. And that's a real problem.
Well, the scripture says, look up for your redemption draweth nigh, and the whole world's now looking down at their iPhones.
That's true. Yeah, a few years ago on Father's Day, I launched a campaign called Disconnect to Reconnect. And my idea was on one day, guys, let's put our computer away, and let's try to reconnect with our family. It took off like a rocket. I was surprised. I mean, a lot of organizations and the secular media picked it up because it's so refreshing to actually put that stuff away. I mean, it's funny. If I leave my phone at home and run an errand in the car, I'm miserable. I'm jittery. It's like being an alcoholic or something. It's just really a weird thing. And we've allowed this to happen, and we need to intentionally focus on being quiet, being still, whether it's with God, whether it's with a good book, whatever. We need to take those times and really be alone.
Phil, with all of this technology, do you feel that the simple message of the gospel is getting through?
Well, that's a big question. And I think what's interesting is it is the simplicity of that message that will make it get through. And very often we try to dress it up. We feel obligated sometimes at church, for instance, to dress it up with rock and roll music or fancy lights or some kind of a big experience. And I'm not against all those things by any means. However, we often forget that it's the very simplicity of the gospel that makes it work. This is not a highfalutin, complex, strategic thing. It's just a very simple message. And sometimes in this cluttered, hyper-connected, competitive world we live in, we feel like we have to dress that message up and make it more, something that's more interesting to people. But the truth is, it's those simple little things. If you look at companies like Nike and Starbucks. Right now, for instance, Nike has thousands of billboards all over the country with nothing but the Nike swoosh. No words, no pictures, no text, just that Nike swoosh on them. And yet millions of people know what that simple message is, know what it means, and knows how it can impact their lives. So I just think that we need to go back and realize the simplicity of the gospel, because that's what's really important.
Because the other part of this, we seem to be getting people through the door, maybe even getting them saved, but are we maturing them into disciples?
Yeah, no. That's good. That's a great point. I don't think so. I don't see a lot of churches. We don't even do Sunday school anymore. We used to do a Wednesday night service and then maybe a Thursday night prayer service and a Sunday night service. And when I was growing up, we were in church a lot. There's too many things competing for our time today. So most churches do not have a Sunday school where they actually can go into deeper things of the Bible. And so I don't see discipleship doing well out there right now.
All right. Phil, you're an inspiration, and I just consider it an honor to have you for a few moments today. Let me encourage our listeners and viewers to go check out his books, and Jolt, The One Big Thing, and Unique. And if you're a church leader or anywhere in ministry, all of these are great resources. And then, I don't know, where can they get some of your documentaries and things?
You know what? We did it. They're all over. You know what? Come to my site, probably at philcooke.com, and you can find a lot about it. And also at the Influence Lab, I mentioned earlier, we're putting up more and more stuff. We just launched it. We're going to be changing that site in a few days, but it's up. And people are welcome to come and check that out and see what we're doing there. So, yeah. And by the way, let me say, Perry, great questions. I love doing interviews that are more of a conversation than a Q&A. Yeah. And you've done a great job with that, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. And we need to partner. You need to get some of your documentaries on the Dove TV network.
Well, we should. Let's talk about that.
All right, I'll give you a call.
Let's get that going. Sounds great, man.
All right, God bless. Have a great day, friend.
Bye-bye.
All right, Phil Cooke. We'll be right back.